right, I'm delighted, East Coast, West Coast thing here going, um, to welcome you from Quebec. We have a problem with the H's, so I have to go Hugh when we speak French. So Hugh, it's great to have you here participating in our Leaders Who Care series. So welcome.
Thank you. And look, it's not unusual. I work for a European company, and I've heard my name pronounced in many different ways in many different dialects. So I'll answer to pretty much anything.
Well, that makes me feel better. Thanks. So great place to start. If you could just tell everybody kind of who you are and a little bit about you, that'd be terrific.
Sure. I'm Hugh Welsh. I'm the president and general counsel of DSM North America. DSM is a big company, Dutch headquartered, that I think everybody uses our products every day, but almost nobody knows about us. We're a world leader in health, nutrition, and sustainable living. And so most folks, in one way, shape, or form, either consume the different vitamins, probiotics, omega-3s that we make, or use some of the resins, fibers, engineering materials that we produce in things like electronics, automobiles, et cetera.
Yeah, ever since I met you at the U.S. Chamber Foundation, I was pretty impressed with the, well, you kind of have some energy, so you brought some energy to the table, and I was impressed with that, and just how the company has evolved, over the decades is incredible. But let's start with you. Everybody talks about their why. I had somebody recently saying, no, I start with my what, and then I go to the why. But I'd like you to share your why, but more importantly, tell me why you do what you do.
Yeah, I think it's because I've had some interesting experiences in my life. And one I had very soon after I started my professional career. So I come from a very large family. I have 8 brothers and sisters. One of them is handicapped. And when I was a teenager, my handicapped brother had to go to a place called the Cerebral Palsy League. And my parents, who were both very well educated, had no idea what to do. And that place really helped them and him out. And my father always told me, if you have an opportunity to help these people, do it. Flash forward about 10 years, I was a young litigation lawyer working for a medical malpractice firm, and I did what's called a day in the life video at the Cerebral Palsy League. And I was so moved by the experience that I did what like everybody does at the end of the day sometimes. You give your business card to somebody. I gave mine to the executive director of the facility and said, if you need anything, just give me a call. Well, he called the next day. He invited me to be part of their board of directors, and I agreed. And I quickly realized I was 50 years the junior of the next younger member of the board.
Wow.
So in a very short order of time, at 28 years old, I became the CEO and chairman of the board of this organization while having a full-time job. But I can tell you, looking back in the 10 years that I spent doing that, it was by far the most meaningful thing that I've ever done with whatever modest professional skills I have. I really got to see how what I could do, even at that time as a lawyer, changed the lives of so many children and so many families. And that made me feel great. It made me feel better than any promotion I've ever gotten, any raise I've ever gotten, any bonus I've ever received. And it was almost like a narcotic. I wanted from that point forward to always find a way to do something meaningful, in addition to finding a way, of course, to support myself and my family. So that's really why I'm addicted.
Yeah, it's a great addiction, and thanks for sharing that story. It's amazing how your life can be influenced in one moment like that, and that makes an impact on so many people afterwards. That's fantastic. And with respect to that, I know, and you know too, it's almost taken decades for corporate brands, leaders with corporate brands, to realize how valuable it is to align with social impact, kind of like to do what you did, and realizing that that's the only way they're going to get the very, very best people, number one, but also it's really good for business. And as you said there, you've been living the doing something meaningful before being with the doing something meaningful company, but it's continued, using your legal, your management, your business skills and everything, and very involved in the SDGs as well, which also impressed me. So I've kind of revealed almost the answer to this push question, and it is a little bit of a push question. What differentiates you as one of the leaders who care?
Yeah, I don't think that there's any special skill or quality that would differentiate me candidly in any way. I do think it's a product of some experiences, and then having the opportunity to work for a company like DSM, where I'm surrounded every day by really wonderful people who share very much the same mission. that it's not just about making money, it's about making a difference. And being able to grow up, I've been there 16 years now, to grow up in a culture that encourages and rewards that type of behavior, and not just the unquenching thirst for profit. So if I had to answer the question as to what really differentiates me, it's where I have the opportunity to work and where I've had the opportunity to develop.
Yeah, that's great. I love the story of going from Dutch state mines to doing something meaningful. It stuck with me like crazy. And I had someone I interviewed recently that said that they've always wanted to care and do something, but, and it's partially an excuse, but I partially got it, but they're so entrapped, if you will, I don't know if that was the word he used, with quarterly financial results and the shareholders, that he almost never had time to care. So what he would do is give a quick donation, and that was it. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the traditional Milton Friedman way we practice capitalism, right? We focus in our business lives exclusively on maximizing, shareholder return to the exclusion of all other things, and then to do something good or to ease our conscience, we write a check. But I think that we've seen the end of those days. And I'll use DSM as an example. For us, it's far more than just rhetoric when we talk about doing something meaningful. It's tied to all of the executives' remuneration. And so if you really want to change the behaviors of executives in companies, you can certainly try to change the culture. You can certainly work on your internal communications. But the moment you touch their money, you change everybody's behavior. So in our company, half of our both short-term and long-term bonuses are tied to things that go well beyond just financial return. They're tied to employee engagement. They're tied to safety. They're tied to environmental things like greenhouse gas reduction, renewable electricity, all of those. And I'd love to say that we're all super enlightened in DSM, and so the need to lean hard into the SDGs and make the world a better place and create brighter living solutions for all was an epiphany. Yeah, that would be great if I could say that with any authenticity. The catalyst for it was really our change in our comp structure. And once we did that, you immediately got the attention of everybody, believers and non-believers, and it became sort of the lodestone, the cornerstone of our culture. And so I'd love to see other companies engage in comp that way, and I think that they'll find themselves to be much more successful going forward. Again, moving away from that Milton Friedman style of capitalism to what I think is people are referring to today as stakeholder capitalism.
Exactly. And I do find that there's a lot of leaders out there that do want to care. Some of them don't know how, and some of them kind of lean on maybe the excuse of they can't. But the way you're talking about it really does make sense, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of real life with your phone ringing during an interview. My grandparents used to say with a Kiev Ukraine accent, as long as you have your health, that's the most important thing. And I find now, the era we're in right now, especially with COVID's here and technology is still moving a mile a minute, and we're having a little bit more time to think and reflect on what's important. And with what you just said about how to get people impacted, how do you view what's going to be happening in the future with both work, with how business is done, US-wise and even globally?
Yeah, no, I'm a firm believer that so any disruptive crisis like the one we're all confronting together globally doesn't end trends, it accelerates trends. So when we look at some of the trends that were already in place, and it could be around, the businesses working towards the sustainable development goals or operating in a more sustainable manner, folks working from home more, digitization, all of these different trends have now accelerated massively, I think, we've seen as a consequence of the current crisis. So I think that's going to radically change the nature of American business and global business, where we'll have more people working from home in the future. It's been remarkable to me, even with my own managers, that they're having this epiphany that they can actually trust the employees that they hired to remain productive and engaged at home. This is how change happens. I think the nature of our working environments will change. We'll move away from those sort of traditional office cube farm type environments to areas where collaboration can be facilitated or lifelong learning can be facilitated. I also think that the day when companies could just focus on returning profits to shareholders is long over, that you'll see businesses required to step up and serve the communities where they have the privilege to work and operate. And so even in this COVID pandemic, I've been very proud to see the business community really lead in many respects in delivering PPE to hospitals and first responders, in coming up with new innovative solutions to problems. So like General Motors moving to stop making cars and making ventilators, to other companies using new technology to support convalescent plasma treatments. Business has really, I think, stepped up and filled a void that, if I could be a little provocative, was very much left before this, but has become very apparent during the crisis, a void left by candidly a lack of leadership or polarization in government, media, and in some other institutions. And so, it's a very long-winded answer, but I don't think you get to elect now whether or not you're going to be a stakeholder capitalist or a Milton Friedman capitalist. I think that die has been cast. And to be successful going forward, you're going to have to engage with all those communities, with some authenticity. And if I could, on this question, if I could close, I think when we come out of this, we're going to find that the companies who have weathered this storm with the most resilience and grit were the ones who would really embrace this well before they were confronted, because their employees trusted them, believed in them, knew that the company was going to do what was best for them. And if an employee understands that the company's taking care of them, the employees will take care of the company.
Yeah, right on. We're really well said. I compare a lot of things to sports, and I remember I've always seen, and I've played and I've coached, and it relates to business too. Player makes a mistake. The really smart coach says, "Hey, you made a mistake. You got to do this, and then we really need you. Get back out there," and gets the best ROI, if you will, of that player. Versus a boss, if you fire the person, you've lost any potential ROI to get them to be great. So I think you're right on. And you mentioned another word, grit is one of my favorite words too, whether it's sports or business. So all those are so right on, and the young people are kind of leading it a little bit. And we've all had our eras of making a difference, but I think it's hit a great point here. And with respect to what you said there, how do you see then leaders, and I do believe it's the business leaders who care are going to change it, as you say. What role do you see them playing in recognizing that talent is interested in working with leaders who care about their financial well-being, as well as their physical and as well as their mental well-being, all of the above, not one or the other?
Well, I mean, now that I know you love sports stories, I'll share one of my own.
Cool.
So I was on a plane a number of years ago, and I was sitting next to the Giants head coach, Jim Fossil. So I'm giving a sort of a date time frame. And I'm a huge Dallas Cowboy fan, so please don't hold that against me. But I'm a big Dallas Cowboy fan. And it was the same week that the Cowboys had announced that Bill Parcells was going to be their new coach. And so I'm sitting next to Jim Fossil, and he's wearing a Super Bowl ring. I knew that he hadn't won a Super Bowl. And I said, "It's a nice ring." He says, "Yeah, they give you one of those even when you lose." Start. So, look, I'm a huge Cowboys fan. The Cowboys just got Bill Parcells. What do you think about that? What makes Bill Parcells a great coach? And he looked at me and he said, "Bill Parcells is the greatest coach that I've ever seen because he gets the very most out of all 53 players on the team. Not just the superstar, but the 53rd player on the team. Bill figures out a way to motivate that person, to understand that person. So whatever talent level they have, he's going to squeeze the very, very most out of it." I think that's the same era we're in today with leaders and managers, in that they really got to get the very most, not just out of the superstars on their team, but everybody from folks on the shop floor up to executive vice presidents. And in order to do that, they have to get to know them, not just to get to know their technical skills and their background, but get to know them as human beings, to get to know what their fears are, what their anxiety is, where their motivation lies, to spend that time to be present with them so that they can get the very most out of them. I think that in the future, we're going to have less HR people in an office environment and more, I would call them professional coaches, like they have in sports today, where that can assist managers and leaders to get the very most out of every employee. This pandemic has taught, as I mentioned, managers that they can trust their employees, that and that they really need to also focus on the mental health of employees and the growing sense of isolation I think of a lot of employees feel. This has really, I think, brought that to the forefront. I think that's a good thing. And it'll help, again, help those managers be Bill Parcells level coaches, hopefully getting similar results and ensuring that every one of their employees finds a way to bring their whole selves to work every day and reach their full potential.
Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant. You kind of remind me of, I interviewed an NHL executive once, and he said, you know, longer story short, he said, every year we want to win the championship. We know we're not every year, but that's the goal. What our mandate is to have a winning season every year. And the only way we can do that, it's not just the players, but it's got to be the secretary and admin, the ushers, the guy that cleans the ice, the whole bit, because they're around the players all the time too. And that creates that culture of winning.
Couldn't agree more.
It's pretty cool. Talk a little bit about then about how that goes to the value of the business, obviously being that way, but also goes into the community as well.
Yeah, I mean, well, we certainly, work with the employees that way, but you have to get to know all of your stakeholders. So there's always been a tremendous amount of effort getting to know your customers and maintaining that sort of customer centricity. But when you're operating in a more dynamic global business community as we are today, it's equally important to get to know the different NGOs that you're working with, the different government leaders that you're working with, to foster public-private partnerships, not just to find more efficient solutions to problems, but to become an active member of a global community. I think, again, as we come out of the pandemic, we're going to find that the companies that had those networks in place, that invested the time, energy, and effort in things beyond just the siloed nature of their organizations, will be the ones that come out ahead and that have much more sustained businesses going forward. I mean, you made reference to the DSM acronym standing for Dutch State Mines, and we were a coal mining company 105 years ago. But we managed to learn to be extraordinarily agile and adaptable, kind of practicing corporate Darwinism in routinely changing out the nature of our portfolio and building those informal networks with a whole host of different stakeholders. And I think that that's really been a key success factor in our ability not just to survive for more than a century, but to thrive.
Yeah, no, I love every bit of it. And, I had the good fortune of visiting your global headquarters as well, and I felt it there too. So it's really impressive. So pretend now, last question for now, this one, I'm a new graduate, didn't have my graduation, I'm ticked off, lost that, no prom, the whole bit. They're doing it on TV, but it's not the same. So I come to you, your executive, and I said, I'm a graduate, and what next? What do I do now?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to, and I tell my own kids this same thing, so I don't feel inauthentic in sharing it with you. When I look at people who've had successful careers, there's one thing that they've always had in common, regardless of if it's in the business community, government, media, anywhere. It's that they were lifelong learners. That they took an approach to their careers of, it's not a staged gate linear process where I'm going to move from job to job to job. It's a never-ending process of learning more and more and more about yourself, about human nature, different technical or strategic skills. And I think that quality is more important now than it's ever been. I mean, so many jobs today are being displaced at a very, very rapid pace as a consequence of technology, the use of AI or Internet of Things. There's statistics out there, I think, that show that 70% of college freshmen are studying for jobs that won't exist when they graduate. That's the speed of change we're confronting. And so those people who really embrace lifelong learning will be the ones, I think, that are extremely successful. I mean, not just professionally and financially, but personally going forward. So I would tell people to don't worry too much about yesterday. Don't get too stressed about tomorrow. Be present right now, and use this as an opportunity to learn, again, a little bit about yourself and about the world around you.
Yeah, it's brilliant. In fact, it could even be a song. Don't worry about yesterday. Think about tomorrow. Hey, as always, it's fantastic speaking to you. This could go on for a couple hours, and I would enjoy every minute. So thank you for participating.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been fun as always, Mark.